the SOP flyer. So all you need.
The heart of every man craves a great adventure, but life doesn't usually feel that way. Jesus speaks of narrow gates and wide roads, but the masculine journey is filled with many twists and turns. So how do we keep from losing heart while trying to find the good way when life feels more like a losing battle than something worth dying for? Grab your gear and come on a quest with your band of brothers who will serve as the guides in what we call the masculine journey. The masculine journey starts here now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey. We're glad to have you with us this week, and we're continuing to go through the Foundation series. Well, yeah, it's a series. We can call it that. We can call it whatever we want. It's not a pillar. It's a foundation.
Pillars of foundation.
Yeah. The pillars go on top of a foundation. So our friend Andy, who's not here this week, I don't know why, work release, something. I don't know. He had to go do something. No, he's. I think he's in Missouri. If I remember right. He told me, I just wasn't listening very well.
It's a show me state.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Telling
Yeah.
you doesn't do it.
He'll hear this and he'll remind me of what he told me the other day. But no, anyway, we've been going through this series of the foundations of the ministry. What are the things that we believe in, that we hold on to? If you're new listening to the show, if you're in the Greenville, Spartanburg area listening to us and you're like, who are these guys? Well, none of us have really ever gone to church together. Right? There's a couple of us now that go to church together, but that didn't start out that way. We all come from different backgrounds of Christianity, right? But God brought us all together as a group. And so what are the foundations that we believe in that ties us together, that lets us live out this ministry every day that we do called the Masculine Journey? And so that's what the Foundation series was let's just go back and unpack some of those things that we've done shows on over the years. Let's revisit, renew it in our minds. And then also let other people know this is where we're coming from. And so we've jumped around a little bit. Last week we talked about one of our boot camp talks called the poser. And so, part of the reason we're going to talk about the poser is you have to deal with the poser to get to the thing underneath the poser, the thing that's causing you to want to pose. And that's the topic of this week, which is the wound. Right? Robbie, anything you'd like to add to that so far?
Well, I just think it's fundamental that John Eldredge started this, Wild at Heart book, which led to the original boot camps. And so, the ministry was founded by people that met at a boot camp in Colorado, and our boot camps were formed from that same thing. So if you go read Wild at Heart, you're going to get some sense of this, which is all very, very, very biblically based. In other words, the poser, how many times does Paul have to say to take off a mask, that people realize that being authentic in everything, especially with God, is fundamental. But the question is, why do I not be authentic? Why am I buying into lies, et cetera, et cetera? And often it has to do with this idea, which is very biblical. You have an enemy, and Satan roams around, accusing the brethren. It's very biblical stuff. But what does he accuse you of? is kind of where we're going to an extent tonight, because it's of our wounding that gives him essentially bullets in his gun.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a lot of different aspects of it. We're not going to do the boot camp talk. If you want to hear the boot camp talk, you have to come to boot camp.
Right.
And we have one coming up in November 20th through 23rd, which we'll talk about right at the break, like we always do. But you can go to masculinejourney.org to register if you'd like to do that. But no, we're going to talk about our journeys in the topic of the wound. And so I'll begin a little bit. When I first read Wild at Heart, it was an amazing book. It came to me at a perfect time in my life, and it brought me into a deeper intimacy with God that I obviously needed. Was going through some really hard times in my marriage at the time, and it's exactly what I needed. And you get through the first 3 chapters. Chapter 3 was the poser, and I thought, that was kind of tough, but I worked through that. And then I got to chapter 4, which was the wound, and I sat there. And I sat there, and I sat there for about a year, and I finished the book, but I never could figure out what my wound was, and then I went to a boot camp, and
knowing I just find that fascinating, right? Knowing your life as I know it is if you've unpacked it, for you not to realize your wound just seems unbelievable. But isn't that exactly what it is with all of us? We think everybody has experienced, that this is normal, that we're normal.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things, and the thing that had happened to me was pretty bad in my life, and I'd made a vow that it would never affect my life. And so every time God would kind of bring up this wound, I'd go, nope, not going there, And so God was wanting to deal with it, and it had to do with being sexually molested as a kid and by a family member, and that lasted until I got on the side of the mountain and heard God very clearly, very lovingly say, Sam, this is what we need to deal with. And at the time, I would have told you that was probably my deepest wound that needed to be dealt with. But it was a deep wound, but it wasn't the most impactful wound in my life. God had to get that one out of the way so he could work on the next one. And what you'll find is really pretty cool, that if you can't find your wound, maybe it's something that you kind of know or you forgot that you knew, and God's trying to unearth it and you won't let him, right? Because he's going to be patient, and he's going to be there, and he's going to wait on you, but he's going to eventually want to get to it. And he's going to bring that out, and you have to kind of deal with that because he knows exactly what your heart needs when you don't. And he knew that I needed to deal with that wound first.
Yeah, I think that's gigantic, because a lot of us as men were taught that you don't focus on the past, you just push that away somewhere and you move forward. Right. I mean, that's not something that you need to deal with.
Right.
But you're forgetting what it says in Isaiah 61 is that he came, right, to bind up the brokenhearted. And if you can't admit you're brokenhearted, then you can't bind it up. And it's like the idea, if you don't put the oxygen mask on first, you can't really in a position to give life to anybody else because you don't have any.
Yeah, when Jesus quotes that this is why he came,
did
he come for you or not, right? I mean, obviously he was talking about every one of us that we're brokenhearted. And I think when we're honest with ourselves and we sit down and say, okay, yeah, there's been some hurts in my life. There's been some things, and yeah, I can justify in all sorts of ways, but at the end of the day, it did impact me.
And we are prisoners to the wounds.
Yeah.
I mean, all of what he came for is involved in really this one topic.
Yeah, we a lot of us were raised up in the John Wayne mentality,
right?
And if it wasn't then it was Monty Python. It's just a flesh wound, right? I mean, somewhere along the way, it's a constant story that just shove it down, don't let it define you. Real men don't do that. Well, then you get to scripture, then how do you explain this when David says very clearly in scripture, I am needy and my heart is wounded within me? If there was ever a man's man in scripture that you could point to, David would be one of those guys. He'd be in the top few anyway, right? He kills Goliath, he kills a lion and a bear, when he's out.
10,000s.
Yeah, and a lot of people too, along the way. And so he was a man's man, but he knew in his soul that something was wounded within him, right? And only the healer could come deal with that. And so that's what I want to kind of encourage you. Moving on from that one, and I'll get to a clip before we go to break. The deepest wound that was in my life that had the most fingers, there's a thing called a bitter root wound. And those are, if you ever had a garden or if you ever had a yard that you tried to make look nice, there's certain weeds you can't seem to get out of it. You'll pull them up and you think you got them, and then it starts growing up again, or it grows a couple of inches over and it starts popping up again. And you're thinking this root system must run all through my whole yard, right? Because I keep pulling up the same weed everywhere. Well, that's kind of what a bitter root wound does, is that it's infiltrated in lots of areas of your life. And for me, it was one, I'll just play the clip because this is what I heard from the time I can remember hearing my oldest sister talk to me, who is 28 years older than me. Some version of this I heard over and over my whole life.
This is
wrong thing.
Outlaw Josie Wales.
I didn't hear Outlaw Josie Wales. I guess that would be a wound there. Thank you.
Trampled by the horses.
There we go. Now I got the right one. Here we go.
Shut up. 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 Shut up.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Now, I know that was painful to listen to, but imagine how much more painful it'd be to hear it all the time that you're dealing with a sibling and someone that's an adult when you're a kid. And, and the part about it was I couldn't reconcile for the longest time. My parents, who always seemed to be very defensive and protect me, didn't protect me from my sister. And there was some wounding in that they never once in my presence ever told her to shut up or to not say that. And she would say, shut up. But she'd say, shut up, motor mouth. You have nothing important to say. You still talking. No one wants to hear you talk. That was a constant thing. And the thing about these wounds, the first one that I had, and then you have this other one, and God chose to work on them in that order, because with each one of these wounds, you make an agreement. And that's where the enemy has power with you. When he comes in, and like when I was sexually molested as a kid, the first thing I heard, and I don't know why, but it sounded a lot like Pinocchio, you'll never be a real man, and I made an agreement with that, and so whenever a girlfriend would break up with me or she'd start seeing somebody else, it was always, see, she found a real man. That was the story of my life, because I made this agreement, and if I can't be a good enough man, then everybody's going to leave me, right? And so that was from the first one. And then the second wound was, if I really just speak up and talk, no one's going to want to listen. And so it's just better to shut up and not say anything. And so you have these two things that have been instrumental in my life, and I take those into my first marriage. I wonder how that's going to work out, right?
Quietly.
Yeah, quietly, But for me, it would be quiet, quiet, quiet rage, quiet, quiet, quiet rage. Go from there, and because it would press on these things too closely, and so we're going to let other people talk, I promise, in the show. I just was wanting to unpack a little bit of it, because one of the things I wanted to point out is each step along the way, God has a method to what he's doing, right? And I have a series of a couple failed marriages, right, that didn't work out. And a lot of that had to do with not just me. There were two of us involved. Well, actually more than that when you count the enemy in there. But I have my own things that I brought in that was really broken in the relationship. And that made it hard enough on its own for it to not want to work out. And then when the spouse brings in their own baggage, makes it even tougher. And we're going to talk more about that. And we're going to talk about the healing that we get to. We're not going to leave you broken and wounded. We're going to get to healing. Go to masculinejourney.org to register for the upcoming boot camp, November 20th through 23rd. Sorry, I'm dominating the
Here are the
conversation.
contest
No,
rules for the
it's
Truth Network.
It's
Prizes won are not
You should.
transferable,
It's your
redeemable
clip.
for cash, or exchangeable for any other prize.
and it's actually
All
your
prizes must be redeemed for the station within 30 days of winning.
whatever you want to
Only
call it,
one prize
your,
per household from any station
franchise.
Truth Broadcasting within
Yeah.
any 30-day period. The
Talk,
rest of our
whatever.
contest rules are listed under the About Us
I
link
just,
at our website, truthnetwork.com.
I'm going
Thanks
to
for
jump off
playing
the line.
and listening to the Truth Network.
But you just brought us all a lot of healing through this discussion.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the
Perfect
same
sound
song
on
on
you.
tuba,
Yeah, no, that makes sense, right?
please be done. Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
We should use
Brought
that
to you
for
by
the
the
post.
National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Now I'm here. Now I'm here. I'm here unashamed. I felt straight through the pain. What was broken is standing again. Now I'm here. Now I'm here.
Welcome back to Masculine Journey. That's Riley Clemens, and I know the guys will laugh at me because I always read the lyrics. Because for me, I have a hard time picking up the words unless I know the song, and so I always feel obligated to try to read what you were hearing there. But it's really pretty powerful, and that's why I chose it as a bump in. Was she's singing, "Now I'm healing, now I'm healing. I'm here unashamed. I found strength through the pain. What was broken is standing again. Now I'm healing. Now I'm healing. And that's what we're talking about is God will take you through this journey. And it's not always a pleasant journey, is it, Robbie?
Oh my gosh. No.
It's painful.
It's painful, but it is also a place of great freedom.
Right.
Like, and that's one of the major themes of our ministry is freedom that Christ gives you. In Christ, you get that freedom, but you got to push into it. And, the idea of no pain, no gain is right here. Believe me, is you get that because you get healing through, obviously, he's going to bind up your broken heart to somehow or another give you some understanding of what's in there, which will end up being some type of an agreement, but also all sorts of unforgiveness. And not just unforgiveness for the sister, the bully, but often, and the one that's most difficult to forgive in the equation is myself.
Absolutely.
Right? And realizing, that I was taking prisoners in the midst of all this.
Mm-hmm.
And so what becomes revealed to you is all these things that give you forgiveness, give you freedom from wounding, and it's so worth, from my perspective, the adventure of pushing in.
Oh, absolutely. And the old adage remains true. You either get bitter or you get better.
Right.
You don't stand still. Right. And so if you refuse to enter into that place where you're going to get better, your only other option is you're going to get more and more bitter. Right. And how many of us do we know older people that have chosen to remain stuck in these wounded areas, and they're really pretty bitter people, and you hate that for their hearts, but that's all they know now. And so when I think of it, I'm like, well, there's really only one choice, honestly. I want to get better. And the reason I went through those wounds was with each one of those, I did make an agreement, and in each one of those, it negatively impacted relationships in my life. With my kids, when they were young and they didn't want to listen, which every parent goes through, I would get over the top angry because here's just another evidence of people don't listen to what I have to say. I have nothing important to say. And until I had healing in that area, when it should be a level 1 punishment, it'd be at level 4, right? And they'd be grounded forever, or whatever the case is, and no TV for a month, or, it didn't match what was going on. And what was really going on there is God peeled back all these infected areas in my life with this agreement of I have nothing important to say. It came from the wound, and unpacked each one of those relationships turned around and became really strong. And there's been times for me to apologize over my part in their wounding, right? Because I was very much instrumental in it, and God's turned those things into really good relationships now. And later on, maybe in the after hours, I'll talk about some current stuff he's taken me through, but I would never be at some current wound healing unless I went through those other steps. And that's what I want to encourage you by laying that all kind of out there is wherever God wants to start you, go there with him, right? He knows exactly what you need. Look back in scripture, Jesus never healed the blind the same way twice. Right? God's not going to work on you the same way he worked on me. He's not going to work on Robbie the same way he worked on Jim. Right? Because we're uniquely made in his image, and we have unique wounds that have hit us in a unique way. And I guess I'm using that word for you, Jim.
And you used it correctly every time.
I know.
Blown away.
Yeah. But so his healing of you is going to be unique. And so that's kind of my 24 cents. There was more than just 1 cent there. But I threw a bunch of it out there. What do you guys want to add or go from there?
One of the things, as you said, that kind of hooked me, Robbie, is that we all think we're normal.
Yeah.
After seeing and hearing from so many men about what their normal was, I had a very abnormal upbringing. I had 2 parents that loved me unconditionally, that stayed together. I had 2 sets of grandparents that lived till I was an adult and also loved me unconditionally. And that's the exception, not the rule.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's still wounds in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one I reckon, and I was sort of like you, I got to that chapter and just sort of, okay, this doesn't apply to me. I had a great childhood, and I did. But the first one that God pointed out to me was I had unconditional love, but not acceptance. When I did something well, they said, "You did a great job with this, Jimmy, but you could have done this, and it'd be better." And that was instructional, and it was often information I needed to hear, but it was never just total, great job. And we need to hear that from our fathers in particular. And if you read the book, and I hope you have or will, this is addressed as the father wound, but the wounds can come from all kinds of different places, like you said, from your oldest sister.
Yeah, and they do come from all these other places. Once God starts opening up your eyes to see this, it's you realize, wow, there's some work to do here. God's got some work to do. But the cool thing is, He doesn't do it all at once. He gives you little times of R&R, a little bit to kind of mend. There's been times I've kind of went at Him and said, God, I just can't handle anymore right now. Honestly, I just need to. Can we slow this one down a little bit? And He'll be patient with you. But He's going to be persistent, and He's going to want to get there because He loves you more than you love you. And He wants to get you to a place of healing and restoration that is what He's after in your life.
But you got to make time for that.
Right, you do.
And, a lot of people, I don't have time to go to boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to sit down with God and really hash that, or, I don't know what stands in between, the point of, gee, I need to do something about this, because unfortunately, we know this, hurt people, right? And so as you're walking around with your wounds, there's a number of things going on. And I'm talking about myself. As I'm walking around with my wounds, I'm cheating myself out of the life, but I'm also cheating all those people around me of seeing my healing. Because if they see me heal, they would give them hope that they could have healing. And I say that only because I've been around Sam for nearly 15 years now, and maybe longer than that. And I've seen Sam healed through so many difficult situations that gave me hope and gave me insight on how I could push into similar healing if I would take the time, if I would commit to do those kind of things and make that process. But see, Sam didn't cheat me of that because he pushed into it himself. But then he also is investing in the relationship with his own family and his future wife, in this case, maybe. And so, I'll just share this story because it's so relevant to me. I used to have this salesman. His name is Scott Barwick. I love him to death. He was all about making money. He just had to make money. He had all these bills. I got to make money, Robbie. I got to make money. Well, he was a great salesman. And so the way Chrysler had it at the time, if you were certified, you would get $150, $200 per car for every car that you sold on top of whatever you got from the dealership, right? Well, as soon as he could get certified, he would get back pay on all these car seats sold for the last 2 years, which amounted to $6,000 or $7,000, right? I mean, but every time I would go to him like, Scott, you got to go get certified. I don't have time to go get certified. Why do you not have time? I've got to make money. I said, dude, 6,000. What could you do? I mean, take 2 days that you would make selling cars. Go take your test. And I don't know how many times I had this conversation with him, but it was, I'm too busy. I don't have time. What do you mean? Why don't you have time? I've got to make money.
Yeah.
Duh, right? But unfortunately, in my own life, right? How long did I wait going through all that I put my family through, all that I put myself through, all that I certainly put God through, because he's sitting there waiting, like Robbie, right here. But it takes, okay, I surrender.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the time. I'm going to take the time to go to boot camp or someplace where I can get alone with God and the scriptures and the right questions to ask God. And I can't think of a better place than boot camp. And I just think that it's so worth it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, that's where I found I've yet to attend a boot camp, and Jim and I have been to so many of them that there hasn't been something God's done that's been instrumental in my life. But let's say you don't have time. And you don't know what your wounds are. So next time you're watching a TV show and something just jumps up at you and makes you really angry, brings you to tears, makes you show an emotion that doesn't match the scene. right? Or you hear a song that does something to you emotionally. That's the Holy Spirit kind of digging at you, saying, hey, there's something here. Just take a few minutes, shut off the radio, shut off the TV, take some time right away if you can, if not as soon as you can. Say, God, what was that about? Just ask him that question. Why did I get so emotional over this situation, over this movie clip, over this song I heard? Right? We call it checking under the hood. Right? You'd be amazed that God will just open your eyes to things that you didn't even remember that had happened. And that song pushes on a spot that was really tender from years ago, right? Or that clip reminds you of something that happened in your childhood, right? And you just don't have the words for it, but God knows the memory's there. Your subconscious knows the memory's there. He's just got to help you unearth it so he can start to work on it. And so even if you don't have the minute to come to boot camp, there's no reason you can't start to get some healing. Because what you get on the other side of that, and I will not downplay it, and Robbie said it very well, I know Jim would echo it, it is painful to go back through these wounds. God has to take you back in there. It's kind of like digging out a splinter. It doesn't feel real good, but oh my gosh, does it feel so much better once that splinter's out, right? And it's not going to fester and get worse and, become infected even more, right? And that's what it's doing to your life right now. So let God do that surgery and come in. Because the healing and the restoration and the freedom and the deeper intimacy you have with God on the other side, oh my gosh, is it worth it? I mean, there's no other way to say it. There's nothing that will make you grow more in your relationship with God than letting him in to work on these vulnerable spots in your life. Go to masculinejourney.org to register for the upcoming boot camp. We will continue with this topic in our after hours. If you don't know what that is, go to any podcast location, look up Masculine Journey. You'll find the after hours. We continue this topic when Robbie and Jim actually get a chance to talk some. And we'll go back through some of those wounds. Register for the upcoming boot camp November 20th through 23rd, masculinejourney.org. Didn't get it in there. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I dominated that whole show.
Well, number one, we didn't have a lot of people.
Yeah.
Four clips. And number two, I think it was absolutely spectacular. I mean, it's the heart of the.
My feelings are not hurt.
Okay.
Well,
I think Art had a lot of words, and he was one.
Yeah, he's got the second show. He can.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to him right away out of the gate.
Okay. I can just let him sit there.
I'll say something.
Yeah, here, Art, you can sit here and come back.
I'll be back when I get back.
Well, we got
Towards the end of it.
we got your guys' 2 tips. You guys can unpack wounds, and Jim, you went there on some of it. You can do whatever you want. Talk about current stuff.
Josie or Wales,
Yeah.
or to endeavor to.
I have a little Welsh blood.
You have a little what?
Welsh blood. If you are from Wales, you are Welsh.
I'm pretty much.
Welsh.
I'm a European mutt for the most part. German, English, French, Irish.
Does Josie Wales have to do with Wales?
He doesn't scream a lot, so it's not wailing, crying.
Josie
You
Wales.
can usually understand what he's saying, so.
And he
That
never
doesn't happen.
porpoises or anything like that. He's not a whale.
He's not.
It's also Wales.
I bet you did. Orca.
Didn't see a single orca, and I'm okay with that. They're evil. I mean, that's the devil of the sea. Oh,
What makes you say that?
the fact that they are so smart that they will come up to buoys where a seal may be setting himself, bump the buoy, knock the seal off to eat it. They will eat their own children if they're hungry. They kill other whales. What's more? That's a service.
Have you ever looked at this?
They're
Anything
pretty.
that had to do with that. I think it's called the megalodon. This daggum shark that just dwarfs a white shark with these teeth that apparently like
Oh yeah, they're shark teeth. that period can be nice.
Like, what the heck? I mean, these things were like they were bigger than a whale shark.
I think that's the difference between the really not, and the fact that Carolyn hates them doesn't hurt any either. But the shark is just an eating machine, but it's not really a thinker. Some of the things that the whales pull off, you would describe to human intelligence.
I mean, the fact that that orca will take a seal and throw it in the air to tender it up.
What, a shark or a orca?
But the orca will, they'll actually beach themselves in order to get a seal, but they'll take them and throw them up in the air multiple times because, you know, it's softening them up. Then they'll eventually eat him.
They can get off.
Well, they don't have access to one of the hammers.
Oh, Robbie, you're very quiet. You're very quiet on your.
I'm very what?
You're very quiet on that.
I know that. I don't know if this
Is it
mic
working?
is not up. It was driving me crazy. That's why I took the headphones off because I was like, I don't know.
You're hearing yourself.
Did you hear that too in the headphones?
I
Mine
sounded
mic?
fine, but I had mine turned up. So this next show, you guys, who wants to do their clip first?
I'm good either way.
Me too. Whatever you're in charge of the show. I'll ask. Keith would know.
Harold, Art, you guys have stuff to add?
Can, assuming my voice will work,
Well, it's better than it was last week.
I went ahead and took the cough drop.
Yeah.
He says I'm fine. He said, Robbie, you're kind of loud. It just all evens out.
Well, was he talking about you or your microphone?
Me.
Yeah, you're like,
He's talking about me.
You're exactly right, Keith.
picking on you.
Loudmouth.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, well, even if the mic's not working, I'm sure we can hear it. But it was as if you weren't on the mic at all, where I'm sitting.
Right, I felt that with those headphones too. But sometimes, you know, it's I have to look at listen to the podcast. But in the Facebook feed, it's off this microphone or that microphone. It's a different thing.
I think I'll play Click next.
Okay.
And then we'll do Outlaw Jonesy ones.
That really, you know, I guess I hadn't seen that clip in a while.
Yeah.
And I never noticed that Harry Winkler's crying as he walks away.
Mhm.
Um,
Henry.
whoever it is.
Henry Winkler.
Henry, you know,
Harry might be
Fonz.
his brother.
the older brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, the Fonz, when he walks away, he literally has tears coming down his.
Yeah.
And I had never, and it just grabbed me like, man, if you put yourself in his shoes right that second, it had to feel horrible, like super horrible.
I don't know how true it was, but I saw the other day that was the highest grossing Adam Sandler movie. This Click.
Really?
Yeah.
That might be why I didn't see it, because he was in it.
It's actually a good movie. Well, it's got Adam Sandler stuff in it, but
What?
the message is a good message.
It's a great message. And a lot of Adam Sandler's movies got a great message. Even Happy Gilmore, which I would have thought clearly would have to been one of his biggest.
Yeah.
They've done the remake.
Oh, I know.
Has anybody seen it?
I've seen it.
Is it good?
It was all right. A lot of cameos.
Is Bob Barker in it?
Just in flashback.
I thought maybe the artificial intelligence came
Yeah.
in or something. Yeah. Fight him one more time. Bob Barker.
Price is wrong, Bob.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, the guy with his hand, the guy who played Apollo Creed,
Oh yeah.
that was funny.
Oh yeah. Chubbs.
Chubbs.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you had the guy that had the nail in his head, that was, and then you had the voice of the enemy, right?
Oh yeah.
And the
definitely
crowd
did.
that would just, yell out at him. Yeah.
Harold's chuckling inside.
Thinking about that movie.
Yeah, it should be a classic. It is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the humor, and it's hilarious.
We got about a minute. But I was listening to a clip from Rob Schneider. He was talking about that in the movie Big Daddy. The producers didn't want him in the show, and Adam Sandler talked to them to let him be in one scene with one line. Well, it ended up he just kept inviting him back the next day and telling him to say certain things, and he ended up getting a pretty big role in the show. And he talked about how Adam had taken care of him through his career when he was having trouble finding jobs. That he would give him little bits and pieces in every one of his movies just so that he would have his face to be present. And just it was a pretty neat story. Anyway,
I think so too. Oh, I don't want to listen to that. It drives me nuts. And I don't want to be nuts. Right now, there.
Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours. We are in the middle of our foundation series. We're somewhere along the way in our foundation series. I don't know if we've quite reached the middle yet. I can't really say that in all honesty. We're probably somewhere near the beginning of it, would be my guess. But we'll do it as long as God tells us to do it, and then we'll stop and move on to something else. But we're continuing the foundation series where we're talking about the beliefs of the ministry and the things that where we found freedom and we found life and deeper intimacy with God. And so we're taking a boot camp talk again this week. We'd used a poser last week, and this week we're talking about the wound, and why it's important to turn to God with those wounded, broken areas in our life and what he does with them. And so we talked about that at the last show, and we're going to continue that and go a little bit deeper. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys now because I talked pretty much the whole last show. I may, chime in once in a while. But Robbie, you have the first clip of this show. If you want to set it up or however you want to go about getting it played.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say there. I ran out of words. I was like, I got nothing.
So, it's usually described in the book Wild at Heart as the father wound, right?
Right.
And the fact that every man, there's some level where the enemy wants clearly you to take whatever your father wound is and project it onto God to create a lack of intimacy between you and God based on a lack of intimacy between you and your father.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a pattern there, but obviously, maybe I shouldn't say that, but one of the most amazing relationships in the Bible is that of Jesus and his Father, right? Here's a picture of what this should look like. Here's what this relationship should be. One of, just unbelievable admiration, love, support, acceptance, all those things. And it's the most fabulous relationship, that you can possibly dream of, especially if you think about it. If you had some kind of relationship with your dad, there were probably special moments in there. I hope they're not totally tainted, but times he took you fishing, or maybe you went on a special trip somewhere, or maybe, it was at a certain event that he took you to, or whatever it was where you felt loved and accepted, and you wanted to go on that kind of journey, and you wanted to do it with Dad. That was what you wanted. And unfortunately, when that didn't play out in the rest of your life, it seemed to be pointed back that I don't have what it takes. It's not a matter of my father let me down. It was a matter of I'm letting down my father, or I'm a disappointment. Right. And I had a great father. There's no doubt he was a great man. And in so many different ways, certainly in his career, climbed up the ladder at General Motors, actually to becoming a vice president of General Motors at one point in time through Buick Motor Division. And he had this very illustrious career, which made him very, very busy. So, he would leave out on Monday morning to go do his work, and we wouldn't see him again until Friday night. And by that time, he was really tired, and he had a bunch of work for us to do over the weekend. And but when he took us on vacation, it was a different deal. But that was what I learned, that was what a man does. Is he, goes out and provides at some kind of level that was above excellence. And my father believed in above excellence. And so one of my wounds was that I was a disappointment to my dad, that I didn't have that kind of career, that I couldn't possibly compete intellectually with him, and things like that. And so as that projected on throughout my life, part of what happened to me was that I didn't like hanging around him. As I got into my late teens and early 20s and trying to find my own way, I wasn't looking for, I need to go spend time with my dad, because at this point in time, it hurt. And it made me feel like less than, made me feel like a disappointment. And that led to a relationship that wasn't what it should have been. Mm-hmm. And undoubtedly was projected on God by some level. And so this clip that I want to play is from the movie Click, which is, to me, one of the more amazing Adam Sandler movies. And the idea here, this man has got a remote control, like a man with a remote control. And he's able to go back to places in his life, and revisit them, and even hit super slow mo to go through them in any way that he wants to revisit that, or he can fast forward through his life to see, what his life is going to be. But the problem is, once he goes through it, he can't come back, and he realizes the man that he becomes is a lot different than what he felt like he should have been. But a lot of it was because he was driven by his father to be, not less than. So in this scene, he is trying to do all his work to be, all the greatest of whatever it is that he does. He wants to be the greatest. And he's so busy that he doesn't have time for his son first. But then his dad shows up and he wants to take him to dinner. And again, when you hear Adam Sandler speaking, some of the times it's him, the character of him, as he was in life. But the other one is him with the remote control talking to himself, is like, what a schmuck. He's talking about his own self, that he was being a fool in not taking advantage of the time he had left with his dad, because shortly after this clip, his dad dies. And then where is he? He doesn't have a chance to go back and have that relationship with his dad. So as you listen to this, you can kind of get a feel of what that feels like.
So, Michael, I had a wonderful idea. Your mother's playing canasta with her friends tonight. I thought, oh, what a great opportunity. You, me, and Ben should go and have a boys' night out. Can't. What do you mean you can't? You have to eat sometime. We could whistle at pretty girls.
I'm down for that.
See, he's down. I don't know what it means, but he's down.
Hey, please.
Don't give me that finger. I'll make you a deal. If you come, I'll show you the quarter trick.
Will you look at the man?
I'll tell you the secret.
No, Dad.
Don't you want to know?
How you do this stupid trick? I've always known. Can you let me do my work?
You've always known. You're pathetic. I'm so sorry I botched it. I love you, son.
See you later, Grandpa. I love you.
Dad.
Bob. Bob.
I love you, son. I love you, son.
Yeah, that's right. It hurts. And, you know, I'd never, as I was clipping that for the show tonight, you know, I'd noticed that you know, Fonz, whatever you want to call it.
Henry Winkler.
Henry Winkler.
Yeah.
Not Harry.
That's his brother. I think.
Because you can't think of Cats in the Cradle as done by Harry Chapin. So it's kind of like it mixes the whole thing. Like, oh my goodness. You know, my father dearly loved me. And I can't imagine how it hurt him that I wanted to be distant from him because he didn't understand. You know, he followed his life the way he probably got it from his father, and on down it goes. But you know, here it continues to go down the generations as well, like between me and my son, right? Because undoubtedly, when you know I was in my 30s and 40s, you know, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go prove that I could be the greatest car dealer in the world, or whatever it was that was my so-called dream of the time, and came home late at night, probably grumpy, and you know, not unlike you know what I went through there. And so the healing is critical. And unfortunately, I ended up with it. You know, last time I saw my dad, you know, I got to help take care of him the last few years of his life. And he came to several boot camps, and we talked a lot about all these things, and we pushed into them. Unlike Henry Winkler's character, unlike Adam Sandler's character, you know, we got to get to that point where we had that reconciliation, and we got to have that father and son relationship, go fishing and some stuff near the end of his life that is so precious. I can't even imagine. I don't want to imagine, you know, if God hadn't pushed into the healing part of that my life, and I'd lost my dad before, you know, we'd had a chance to get back, you know, some that the locusts had eaten. And, you know, there's a lot of forgiveness in the middle of all that. And there's a lot of agreements that had to be broken, but it's worth pushing into.
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to talk this show, but I'm already not being truthful about that.
That's okay.
One thing
We knew that.
one thing I would encourage you, you know, my dad passed away in '84, and I went to my first boot camp in 2002. So not much chance to go there, but God has done a lot of healing in my life with my relationship with my dad by helping me see the challenges my dad had, and talking to my mom when she was alive, and talking to my old sister who's still alive, oldest sister still alive. I got two that are alive. And her sharing things and stories of my dad that I never knew. You know, and so there's still healing available even if the person's not there, because the Father's still there. And he can still take you into those things. And so don't write anything off. Just let God take you where he takes you. So.
Okay. Being looked at. It must be my turn.
Well, you could do it, but let me go to Harold real quick first. Then I'll do your
Go
quick.
right
Harold,
ahead.
would you like to add anything to the topic so far that we've been talking about?
Well, what I had planned to talk about, Robbie just stole my thunder.
Oh, okay.
I was going to talk about the fact that one of the really downsides to it is passing on. And we can be so hurt that we rebel, and in our own way, in a different way, we hurt our son so that he gets a father wound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it just carries on. Yeah, that's a hard thing that you realize is once you can start to see your wounds, God, well, first the enemy starts showing you all the times you've wounded other people, but then God will walk you through those as well. You know, and let you go back and know when to apologize, or how to apologize, or how to let it go when they don't receive it, right? But, you know, just following his lead. And, he's taking you down a path that he wants to take you. And so
I think the wound you give hurts worse than the wound you get.
it hurts every bit as much anyway. Yeah. Yeah, it sure feels that way.
Okay. This is sort of a Paul Harvey version. You're going to get the rest of the story in the clip, but these are two guys, and the culprit here is the United States government for both of them. One was a Confederate soldier, and one was a Cherokee Indian, which the Cherokee is enough. And that his name in this is Stan Waddy, and he has been sent on the Trail of Tears, where he lost his entire family, to transplant them from Carolina, Tennessee area to Oklahoma. And then what's happening in this is he has gone to Washington, and he's still wearing his frock coat in the scene here, talking to the hero of the entire movie, Josie Wales, who has virtually nothing to say. Let's go ahead and play it, and we'll chat on the back end.
Seems like we can't trust the white man.
You bet we can. He wore this frock coat in Washington before the war. We wore them because we belonged to the 5 civilized tribes. We dressed ourselves up like Abraham Lincoln. You know, we got to see the Secretary of the Interior, and he said, "Boy, you boys sure look civilized." He congratulated us, and he gave us medals for looking so civilized. We told him about how our land had been stolen and our people were dying. When we finished, he shook our hands and said, "Endeavor to persevere." They stood us in a line: John Jumper, Shirley McIntosh, Buffalo Hump, and Jim Buckmark, and me. I'm Lone Waddy. They took our pictures, and the newspaper said, "Indians vow to endeavor to persevere." We thought about it for a long time, endeavor to persevere. And when we had thought about it long enough, we declared war on the Union.
And that last little bit of story was Josie Wales excited about the story. I picked this one largely because I love this movie, but the wounds that we suffer often can be totally, and usually are totally out of our control. And he was trying to defend his people and just got a medal and a nice set of clothes and congratulated for being civilized. And so they went to war. And that the governments, to me, are general, and I'm not saying anything political about what's going on now, but governments are institutions created by men, but they're not men. And to get to know people, it has to be individually. And my father was well loved by people of many levels. And one of the last wound I recognized that God took me through was how I could not be like my father. I wanted to emulate my earthly father as well as my godly father. And I always felt, sort of like Robbie said, there was no chance I would come up to the stature in the community or in much of any way to what my father was. And the wound, and I often will say most of my wounds are self-inflicted, Mine was, but it was because I wanted to emulate him. And I was not the man that he was, and I wasn't meant to be. But the way God healed me with that, and this was, well, I mean, I was well in my 40s and I went to divinity school. And my father, and just I could feel it now, sitting out in the car outside our house, my house. And he said, Jimmy, I'm so proud of you. And that from a father means everything. And if you didn't get it from your human father, you've got it from your heavenly Father. And that was the point that I really wanted to get to. He's going to take you to the healing of whatever wounds you have, however horrific they may be. He can get you to that point of loving people and emulating his son, Jesus Christ. And that's our goal.
Yeah. And once you start peeling back wounds, the thing is that you start to find your voice, you start to find yourself that was lost along the way, that you start to uncover the identity that God created you to be that got stolen from you as these wounds came in, as the agreements came in with the enemy, as the vows were made to never trust anyone again, and whatever that vow looked like for you. I'm never going to open up and be vulnerable. You know, whatever those things are that seem very self-protecting, but are just a cocoon that suffocates you, right? And so when you get these healing, you get this authenticity to yourself that, you know, you become okay with the person you see in the mirror, you know, and not ashamed. And that's what I loved about that bump that she talked about in the last show was, I'm unashamed. Right?
The sort of forgot the point of my clip,
Sorry.
but well, no, you were fine. The real message that I got from this is that sometimes we've got to fight for that. In fact, most of the time we have to fight for that healing, and it takes us back to being the warrior that we're created to be. If you do like, and Sam, I sort of identify with this. I wanted everybody to like me, and I just, you know, would take all kinds of abuse. I still do to a large extent. But at a certain point, and the point is best for me, is defending others.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight is worth fighting when we have dealt with our wounds. We're in a position where we can fight. Wounded warriors happen, but you can't fight wounded for very long.
No, and the thing is, it's a mixture of fighting and surrendering, right? I have to surrender to the Father, right? But still fight the enemy. He's not going to let you just sit there. He's going to try to come in and try to steal what progress you're making, you know, and realizing I still have an active enemy out there, and God's stronger and greater and has defeated that one, but he's still active in your life. And being able to stand back and say, no, I'm not going to make that agreement. I'm not going to step into this space anymore, but also in the same time surrendering to the Father.
And the enemy is not the people that wounded you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the brokenness and the enemy using that
to create labels. And
through them.
that I was going to jump in when I, you know, for whatever reason, when I first turned talks at my first boot camps, you know, they kept giving me the poser talk. I like, Rob, you got something to learn here. And I gave that talk so many times. And I think part of it was because I really enjoyed the beginning of the talk was that everybody knows what a squirrel is. It's in its name. And when you think of the label squirrel, you don't have to, you know, you see it, you know, with this little, you know, you get the whole squirrel picture. It's like right there, right?
Yeah,
or,
nice.
You know, if you know a goose, you know, they'll, you know, and every animal has a very particular identity. And if you saw that goose trying to be a squirrel, I mean, it doesn't fit, right? And we, you know, begin to accept labels at very young ages of something that we are not. And the enemy is right there to help you to put the label on you, motor mouth, right? You got nothing of value to say. And if you can't see it, that the picture there for who do you know more than Sam has got something worthwhile to say? He's an amazing teacher. And so the enemy was attacking him, trying to get him to be something he wasn't by giving him a label of something he wasn't, right? And the idea of the masculine journey, to some extent, one of the foundations I believe in, is pushing into your true identity. Who did God make you to be, and how is it that you reflect his glory like no one else can? And so as you begin to unpack this wound, as you begin to get the forgiveness, as you begin to get the freedom is to what? To be who you were supposed to be. Not the executive with Buick Motor Vision. Who cares? I don't want to be. You probably don't want to be in the Navy anymore either, do you, Jim? Or maybe you do. I don't know. But you still do a lot of cruises.
Well, at this point, I got the ship.
But nonetheless, the idea is he made you to be you, and nobody can be you like you. And when you shine like that, all heaven rejoices, because they don't get to see that aspect of God unless you have the freedom to walk in it. So when we did the poser last week, we're doing this, they go together so well, because when we throw out that false identity, then you're allowing the wound and the pose to keep you from being who you really are, which is the healing that's available, is the real Sam, the real Jim, which are definitely amazing people if you get to know the real one.
And that you brought up the Navy as an example of, I wanted to be like my father. He was a captain in the Navy in World War II. Well, he wasn't a captain then, he was a lieutenant. But I wanted to be like my father, and that was part of it. But it ended up not being me. I was too blind, too fat, and too old the 3 times I tried to get in. But we are to be our own people, and until you can be authentic, you're in that pose, and you're going to get those ones.
And the thing that's really pretty cool is you walk more in your identity and you become more authentically you. The relationships you have are truly because they like you, not for who they thought you were, but for who you really are, right? And you get a really deepen those relationships. My relationship with my kids are much stronger because they know I have faults. They walked through a lot of this at boot camps with me on my boys and things like that. Art, I wanted to get to you. Did you have anything you wanted to add on the show? I did not ask you anything. You've been sitting over there quietly.
Well, just a little. Sam, your clip, shut up. It reminds me of Andrew's clip where he said, "You big dummy, you dummy, you big dummy." That was a few years ago. Was he? I guess he was talking about wounds. I don't remember.
He was.
He was. And yeah, I remember that. I liked his clip so much, and it prompted me to talk a little bit in the group. I mean, in the group, not on the radio.
Yeah.
But I've been coming here a while, but I'm quiet. I don't talk a whole lot. It's just once in a while, I think that I come up with something that somebody might want to hear over the radio, and I talk some. But just want to say I really appreciate, Sam, you going through this. And I may not talk about it out loud, but when you're talking about it, I can personally go through it myself, and probably a lot of the listeners out there, it's the same for them. And we can think about our own wounds. And Robbie, Sam, Jim.
I know it's been a long time.
Okay, and Harold, what a great show. Thank you for leading us through this. I'm more of a student than a teacher on this kind of subject, and I talked about that a few weeks ago, being a student. So we are come to boot camp November 23rd and
20 through 22.
Okay, so
we did
you,
okay.
Sam.
Yeah, we're good.
You.
We're off. We did good. You did good there. All right, good job.
You did good.
That was very good. That was a very good way to